This episode of Halfwood is sponsored by Fox Rose Woodwork. A good friend of mine, Ben Wilson's, recently started his own company, and Ben specialises in handcrafted utensils and furniture. If you continue listening to today's episode, you'll get the chance to win a limited edition bread bow knife. All you have to do is follow Ben on Instagram at Fox Rose Woodwork. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Halfwit. I am your host, Matt Whitford. To all you new listeners out there, thank you very much for tuning in. And to all you regular listeners, thank you again for your continued support. I want to get straight into today's episode with Mollie McKendrick, because Mollie's story of growing up in country Victoria, moving across the other side of the world to play college basketball, and then since returning to Australia and playing two sports at an extremely high level, and her current work as a barrister. You're going to love today's chat. So without further ado, enjoy episode 11 with Mollie McKendrick. Mollie McKendrick, welcome to Halfwit.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now, Mollie, we can go for as long as you want tonight, okay? So there's a lot of topics to cover, and we will get to the how I did meet you at the North Adelaide Footy Club in 2020, but you've got an awesome story. And as much as we're going to talk about sport quite a lot in this podcast, basketball, footy, any other sports we can think of, your journey is it's incredible. And we're going to talk about your college basketball in the US and all your successes in the NBL1 and SANFLW. And but I just want to know, and all our listeners, where did it all start for you?
I think for me, who I am really starts growing up. I was a kid that didn't fit into any boxes. I through school really enjoyed it, but didn't really find that it was, a welcome place for me. Struggled, being in a small country town, lived out of kind of rural Mildura, which is a small place in Victoria. It's a bit bigger now, but I grew up predominantly in Red Cliffs, which is about 20 k's out of Mildura, which is even smaller. And so I think for me, I was a bit of a different kid growing up and always loved my sport. Being in a country town, footy, netball, cricket, all your other sports are big. So, yeah, I think growing up for me, it just all started with me wanting to play sport. And that was a place I felt like I probably felt the most comfortable.
So mum, dad, siblings?
So I got mum and dad and have two older sisters. But I probably think I'm the oldest sister out of three of us. I've always kind of just had that more older sisterly role. But yeah, I got family based all over the country now, but still some in Mildura.
Yeah. Call Adelaide home now.
In a weird way, yeah. I think when I first came to Adelaide, I always spoke about going home, and that would be home to Mildura. And now I think it's almost flipped, that home for me is Adelaide, and visiting Mildura is probably more of the holiday.
Yeah, I want to talk about your upbringing, because I think 90 or 95% of Australia's population live on the coast. And I'm an Adelaide boy, born and bred, but I've spent time in the country and absolutely loved it. But I guess, what was it like, growing up in Mildura, on the river? You're a long way from Adelaide, long way from Melbourne. What was it like, and what did you do to keep yourself busy?
I think for me, it was a little bit different. So when I was growing up, being in Red Cliffs, that was when the drought was really bad. And so, myself, a lot of my friendship groups, they were all going through kind of tough times with that. So I had some great friends through school who I still talk to now, and we're quite close. And I think we just kind of supported each other through that, knowing our families were all kind of experiencing a similar struggle. But, for us, it was that country lifestyle. We'd go for walks after school. We'd, walk to someone's house and then walk to someone else's house, or go playing, grapevines, or probably isn't your typical upbringing that way. But I think, that country lifestyle, we just enjoyed fresh air and having that space and just hanging out. And I think for me, a big thing was, I had some friends that, their family was part of my family. And people's mums or some of my friends' mums, you consider to be a mum to you because it was just part of that kind of close-knit community that we had. So I think, you get up to no good in the country in a way, but you also have that.
Great experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. And just you kind of always felt a degree of safety because you just knew who was living across the road or who was next door. And, even for us, my house was on a big block area, but I had some friends that were, I thought was really close and I considered a neighbour, but I look at what neighbours are like in Adelaide and you're right beside each other, whereas, a few kilometres in Redcliffe, that was practically your next door neighbour.
Yep. Did you enjoy school?
Oh, that's a loaded
Is this
question.
coming from the high school teacher?
Yeah.
And your answer, it's okay, whatever you say, but...
Yeah, look, I was a kid who was quite lost growing up. And I think, part of that was growing up in a small country town and just being a bit different to your typical teenager. And, some things that I was going through at the time. So I think I probably took that out on my school experience and I rebelled a bit. I had suspensions from school. I had periods of not wanting to be there, but I've always loved learning, always loved being challenged. And if I enjoyed something, I really put my effort into it. But I think for school, it was one of those things where I probably pushed boundaries and tested the waters a little bit just because I was a bit lost in who I was. And that really changed for me. My year 11 to going to year 12, I was ready to kind of quit school, wasn't enjoying it, but kind of knew I was switched on, and if I put my mind to it, I could maybe do something with school. And then I went for school captain, which was really random, out of the blue. Made a speech about how different I was and how I didn't want to be like anyone else, and kind of just put myself out there. Was made school captain, voted in by peers, which was such a privilege. And I remember the discipline coordinator or whatever the role was, he came and spoke to me after I got put in that role and kind of said, you're not really made for this role and, you've got to settle down and you've got to do these things, and just put a big chip on my shoulder to prove him wrong. And so I kind of committed myself to my schooling. I kind of, rebelled his perception that I didn't fit the box of, the ideal school captain. And from there, just kind of really took on the challenge to have a good final year. And, I finished school with some of my best friends, got through as a group, and it ended up being a positive experience, but a challenging one for me.
Proved him wrong. So we spoke a bit off air before about, you did have an unconventional upbringing. I guess I'm really intrigued about where basketball came in for you, and sort of, I'll say got you on the straight and narrow, but, because obviously that's been a huge part of your life since.
Yeah, I was one of those kids who just loved any sport. Anytime I could have, a bat or a ball in my hand, I would. And I always loved watching basketball. And in high school in country town, we had what we called inter-school sports. And so one day a year, you get to do whatever sport it was. And being that I just didn't want to be at school, I did badminton, I did table tennis, any lawn bowls. And my favourite day of the year was always the basketball inter-school sports. And I didn't know how to play really. I just kind of learnt watching people. But I just loved basketball. And no one in my family had really played, but it was just something that I was drawn to. And then it kind of from that, I'd play in the schoolyard, play whenever I could, join in. And really just, I started just really enjoying just training, learning. And when I say training, like it was literally me watching someone on a VHS back then. And then I'd go into the backyard and just try and copy whatever they did. And so, just kind of worked on teaching myself things and learning. And then I ended up, there's a stadium in Mildura called the Hot House. And
pretty warm in summer then?
It was warm in summer, a bit cliche, and the local team was called the Heat. But I started just going in there on my own and just shooting, day in, day out. I'd skip school, I'd just go to the stadium and shoot. And it was kind of through there that I ended up starting, playing actual competitive basketball, and it all just kind of started from there.
Were you always tall?
Always tall, which obviously...
Mollie's quite tall, by the way, for those people listening. So,
well, I'm actually quite small for basketball, but as a human being, I'm probably a bit taller than your average female. But yeah, I've always been a bit of a giant since I was little. So, basketball was always something that probably suited that in a way.
Just get the ball into you in the post and you do the rest.
Yeah, well, I don't know about doing the rest. I had a coach who right from the get-go used to call me Raw, and I never understood that. And now coaching kids and seeing, gangly arms and bricks thrown to the backboard, I get that analogy.
I actually saw a video of Victor Wembanyama when he was younger playing, and it's literally like a baby deer running around the basketball court, and then you see him just nail a couple of triples, and it's an unbelievable video to watch. So
for reference, he's a unicorn and 7'6", and I'm barely 6 foot, but I'll take it.
Yeah, very similar though.
Yeah.
So you started playing your basketball in Mildura. Did that then evolve into representing Mildura and then representing the state and state country championships, I'm assuming?
Yeah, it was all a bit by chance. I would go to the stadium and shoot on a Saturday morning. My mum was a nurse, and so I'd come in with her at 6 a.m. She'd drop me at the stadium. I'd sleep out the front of the stadium until it opened. As soon as it opened, get in the courts and just shoot for hours. And I just remember one day a friend was training with some other people, and I asked if I could join in. Just wanted to play and learn. And through that, it turned out that was the rep or the representative side for Mildura, their local trials. And a random tall kid coming in at the age of 16 in a small country town, people talk, and through that I just started playing rep, really not knowing what it was, but absolutely loving it. Played in the local side, did a bit of travel with an academy side, and just any opportunity with basketball I just jumped at, and kept playing from there.
So when, Mollie, was it that you sort of that penny dropped and you're like, I'm really good at this thing. I'm better than a lot of other people. I've never had that feeling, by the way. But when was it for you that you were like, look, this, there could be some opportunities out there for me?
In the most genuine way, I don't think I ever had that moment. I think for me, I just loved playing basketball. And so every opportunity that came, I just jumped at it without really knowing what I was getting myself into. And it's always been kind of just a love for training, a love for playing. And so, yeah, every opportunity I just kind of said yes and then figured it out after. And even still to this day, I love basketball. I love playing, and my body's probably ready to give up, or probably was ready to give up years ago.
Your early 30s, all right?
Well,
32, from someone in their late 30s, you've still got a good 3 or 4 or 5 more years in you.
Oh, yeah, don't know about that. They do say it's not the years on the engine, I think it is, but the kilometres it's done. So I think my legs and my body's done a few too many kilometres. But
what are your soft tissues like? Calves, hammies?
Don't really have many, but it's not really soft tissues for me. It's more so just ankles, knees, bending, any of that side of things. But yeah, look, I think for me, it's just taking every opportunity that's come, and I've been quite lucky that things have just fallen into place. But at the same time, anytime an opportunity is presented, I've just worked really hard at it and set my sights on what I wanted to achieve and tried to do that, and put in the work.
So let's go back to, you finish year 12 as school captain, proving that teacher wrong. You finish school, where to from there?
It was a bit of a tough period, just in general life for me. I wasn't living at home.
How old would you have been? 17, I'm assuming? 18?
Yeah, just so I moved out when I was 16, was 17 in year 12, so probably a good thing because I wasn't at the legal age to go drinking or go out or get up to no good, but still get up to a little bit of no good. But I was at a real crossroads in my schooling about midway through year 12, kind of not sure what I wanted to do, and that was when the American office came in, and through that opportunity just becoming aware that playing basketball in America was a thing.
So how so you're a 17-year-old girl in Mildura playing basketball. How do you start getting offers in from US colleges?
It was all a bit of chance and opportunity. I played in the Vic state side, Victorian country state side at that point, which gets a bit of exposure. Colleges were starting to pick up that Australian kids were wanting to play in college, so they would come and watch the nationals. But it was also through just word of mouth, people, recruiters knowing people, and this was all beknownst to me. I didn't really know what was going on at the time. And I'd had a few offers for some really random places
such as?
Western New Mexico was, I think, the first call I got, and they were the Mustangs.
Yep. I'm currently watching Breaking Bad, and I'm all over New Mexico at the moment.
Yes, and me being completely ignorant and not being just oblivious to the system, was like, yeah, sure, that sounds great. Like, I would love to come to Western New Mexico. No idea where it was or what division they were playing. And then the next one was, I think, Idaho. Again, wouldn't even know where it was
on a map.
On a map, yeah, just had no idea.
Get back to New Mexico. I reckon Hugh Greenwood, former Adelaide Crows, Gold Coast Sun, and North Melbourne footballer. I reckon he was University of New Mexico.
This is where you get really tripped up, right? Because University of New Mexico sounds like, oh, yeah, that. So there's about 4 different versions of New Mexico, and Lobos is who you're thinking
Yes,
of.
the Lobos. I was in a pub in Albuquerque, and I got chatting with these people, and they're like, "Oh my God, he's an Aussie. We've got an Aussie playing for us." I'd never heard of Hugh Greenwood, but I just went along. I'm like, "Yeah, we know him.
Yeah, of course we know him from Australia."
Little did I know, 2 years later, he was playing a grand final for the Crows.
Yeah, and so he was at the Lobos, and we played against them during my college career. But no, Western New Mexico was, I think it was a Division 3 tiny school in the middle of nowhere. But again, me just having no idea, was just excited at any opportunity to play. And then I just remember being at my grandparents, and I got a phone call from Coach Leffler, who was Boston University, and through just, again, very blessed, and people from Mildura had sent some of my game tape to a coach, or the head coach at the time at Boston University, and from there they'd got in contact with me, and kind of just all fell in place from there. And incredible opportunity that all kind of started really randomly.
And so in the space of a phone call, a couple of phone calls, you're going from Mildura to Boston.
Yeah, and it kind of really got me in the straight and narrow, because one of the things I really needed to do was finish year 12 and make sure that my grades didn't change, to make sure I was eligible. But I was so oblivious. And I remember, I got, the coach said, you've got to fill out the college application so we can get a scholarship. And so, one night, within 10 minutes, I just drafted up this, letter, whatever it was, sent it off, and, Leffler calls me, and, do you need any help? We can sit down. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I just did it. And, beknownst to me, these applications, kids spend weeks, months preparing to submit to the university. And I just, nonchalant, just submitted some letter saying, yeah, I'd like to come to your school, please have me. And so I was just completely oblivious, and it just, each step along the way, I had people that kind of believed in me and that supported me having that opportunity. And so, yeah, it went from being a kid who was kind of lost, not knowing what they wanted to do, and, just enjoying this sport, to, a full ride over in America and in Boston. It was very surreal.
So did you go straight from Mildura to Boston, or was there, like, what was the time sort of frame from finishing school to heading over?
Well, let's firstly go through, Mildura is middle of nowhere. So it's like Mildura to Melbourne flight from Melbourne to Sydney flight, Sydney to LA flight. And I think, just looking back, Mildura was so insignificant, or small, is probably the better way to put it, compared to what I was then exposed to in America, LA, New York. But I finished year 12 up the end of that year, and then I'm trying to remember, but I remember visiting. I had to wait, because I was living out of home. I had to wait to get an adult passport. But, just, again, the school were really supportive, waited for me to do that. Then they flew me all the way over there for a college visit, which, according to NCAA rules, you could only have 48 hours on campus. So I spent like 28 hours in a plane to spend 2 days there, to then fly back. But, they paid for it all just so I could get a vibe of campus, get a feel for it. And that would have been, after January, and I would have started that summer.
So it's all happened pretty quickly. Speaking of transport in and out of Mildura, I've been on a couple of footy trips there, and the bus trip over is great fun. The bus trip back, not so much. So, Mollie, you receive a full scholarship at Boston University. That couldn't have been cheap.
No, I was gobsmacked when I saw the value of it. And it just depends on the school, but Boston University was a big academic school as well. And so my scholarship each year was about $250,000, which was just that sort of money. I don't understand how people can afford it when they're going to college.
Who's paying for it? Like, that's the...
And it's a lifestyle, and, I was a very small piece in a bigger picture, and there was, I think it was 12 or 15 of us were full ride athletes.
Yep.
And that's just one sport of basketball. You think about they've got 10,
all the
15.
other sports. And on my third episode with Colleen O'Malley, she was at the University of Louisville on a lacrosse. I'm not sure if it might have been a half scholarship. And yeah, I met with Colleen earlier in the year and we were just going through how it all works. And then, yeah, she said the exact same point as you, Molly. Like, that was just lacrosse, basketball, football, soccer, you name it. So there's money out there for sport.
Well, you see why America has some of the best athletes. And I never really understood, they call it the AAU circuit with basketball and, parents pushing kids so hard as they're growing up to get these scholarships. But now I get it. And I get why for a lot of people, sport is an avenue to, prepare their rest of their life to get a degree and not have to pay a cent for that. And if you can prove yourself with sport, so I can see that pressure and I can see why they develop, some of the best athletes for that reason.
And I think a good movie to watch, The Blind Side.
Oh, stop it. Sandra Bullock in The Blind Side.
Yeah. I love Sandra Bullock. Miss Congeniality, we could go along.
Yeah, we could.
We could talk about her for the whole podcast. But I think The Blind Side's a great movie about Michael Law, about how he was, he was homeless. And I remember that scene at the end where he just had all those, all those schools just pitching to him, come play for Ole Miss or come play for, Florida State. It was just all those different people, like, we need this person playing for you. And living, in Australia, when you finish high school, it's all club sport. I know Flinders Union, some of the universities have their little, college games, but they're nothing compared to, like,
no,
it's a different. And that, I guess, that leads on to my next question about when you get to Boston, when you're you're living on campus, just like, we see all the movies, but like, what was it like being on campus?
To be honest, just like the movies.
Yep.
I didn't know what to expect, and I was very lucky. I was teamed up and roomed with a field hockey player who was really good to me, kind of showed me the ropes in a way. She'd had an older sister go through the college system, so she was really good to me and kind of just teaching me how to be at college. But, my first weekend there, they had O Week, and, I'd seen a little bit of that of the movies, but it was exactly like that.
There's just parties and drinking and, like, parties, the red cups,
society, the frats, the red cups, the clubs, and when I mean clubs, they had a choir club, there was a Quidditch team, they had ultimate frisbee teams, they had, all your sororities who would do their tryouts, had cheerleaders. It was just such an American experience.
Because as like, if you're in a high school in America, all you're caring about is college. Like, you're looking forward to it because their parents did it. That's just it's that rite of passage in America. Yeah, what college you're going to go to. But, I guess for you, college hadn't really been on your radar for, all that long compared to the people over there. But, like, it was, because we see all the movies, like, you watch them all, The Social Network, like, you see what it's like when they're all on campus and wearing your BU hoodies. And
it was one of the crazy things for me was I felt like growing up I had to really it's probably hard to explain, but it felt like, things were tough in a sense of wanting to, when I had to go train, I had to find a way to get into Mildura so I could use the stadium, or, getting uniforms, it always cost so much. And, things felt in a way sometimes a bit more difficult when I'd see my opportunities versus other people's opportunities. But then you get to college and you rock up and you've got this amazing apartment that's paid for. You've got unlimited dining hall access to food that you like 10 stations of food, as much as you want, whenever you want. You've got
basically Charlie's Diner. You've got all these Charlie's Diners there.
Freshman 15, it's a thing. I ignorantly thought it meant you lose weight from all the training. No, that's definitely...
Sorry, Freshman 15 as in putting on...
Yeah, from unlimited, you had a burger station, pizza station, stir-fry station, ice cream, bagels, whatever you wanted, anytime. And for me, it was then also that surreal moment of you go into the locker room and you've got a locker just full of gear, shoes, clothing, training outfits. And then
for you.
Just for you.
That you don't have to pay for.
Don't have to pay for, and you get, stocked up every few months with new gear. And then you've got a key to the stadium where you train, where you've got a shooting gun that you can use anytime you want. You can get access to the stadium anytime you want. And these facilities, even, athletic training, taping, I always had someone to tape your ankles before training, or, to get ice. It was just the amount of support that you had around you. I just never seen anything like it. And it was, nerve-wracking in a way because it kind of added the pressure to perform, but it was also just a surreal experience as well.
Just a little bit different from the hot house in Mildura, just a little bit.
I still had one basketball I used my whole time that I bought from a sports store, and I held on to that thing, and it was an absolute trash ball. But I remember it was like an $80 Molten, and to me that was like gold, and I was not going to let that thing out of my sight. And then you go to college, and it's like here's 30 basketballs and a shooting gun and 4 courts. Pick which one you want to use. Yeah, very different to Mildura.
It's a little bit different. So you obviously got the full scholarship. Do you then choose what you want to study, or how does that work?
Yeah, you go in there and you choose what degree you want to get. The US system's a little bit different where you get an undergrad, and then if you want to go into a profession or a certain area, you do postgrad. So for me, I kind of went over there not really sure what I was going to do. So I did general studies for 3 years, 2 years, which was just kind of foundational courses. And then from there went into Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice.
And we'll touch on that a little bit later in the pod as well, because that ties in nicely to where we are right now in your meeting room next to your office. So, you're a freshman, and that's, the first year of college, and freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. I'm all over the terminology.
Yeah.
I've watched enough movies. You're obviously, obviously there's 4 years of college, and, you're a freshman, and to play a lot of, get a lot of court time, you'd obviously have to be, one of the best in the team. But you only played, I think it was 75 minutes for the year. What was that like? A good learning curve, sitting on the bench and just, biding your time, waiting for your opportunity?
A steep learning curve. I remember it was about my second or third week. I'd packed my bag. I was ready to go home. And it was just, for me, I'd been so independent and doing my own thing. And I always worked hard, but it was on my time. And I never really had anyone looking over my shoulder, seeing what I was doing, making sure I was doing what I should be. And then so going over there where, at the end of the day, they're paying a lot of money for you to be there. And, they have every right to hold you accountable for that. And it was a very steep learning curve. I missed my first, I think it was 3 trainings. I got penalised because I'd gone out trying to live the freshman life.
Yep.
And got sick after it and was not up to shape at a training. And so my coach sat me down and gave me a stern talking to and banned me from my first 3 trainings. I had to do a 20-mile bike on the assault bike instead. And so for me, that was like a real hit in the face of, it's their way or nothing. And it was great. It was exactly what I needed. And it was something that really showed me, I suppose, the way it was going to be.
Yeah.
And so...
But you could have packed your bags and gone, this is too hard. And I think that's what a lot of our generation at the moment, like as soon as things get a bit hard, I give up, can't do it. Whereas you took your whack and, came out the other end.
And I think it's one of those things that I'm a big believer in choice. And at the end of the day, it's no one's fault and it's no one's success other than yours. And you can make that decision to either fight through it or you can make that decision to walk away. But you've got to acknowledge that it's your decision. And I think for me, when I sat down and thought about what I was going to do, it was like, I'm just not going to give up on this. After that, I really kind of started to learn the college way. Because you're right, I came into basketball, started playing, when I was 16. It was almost like instantly I was the flavour of the month and I got to play whenever I wanted. People wanted me in the team. People wanted me to play the whole game. I was wanted in all these different things. To then going to being a freshman where you are at the end of the list. And, in some circumstances, you probably feel like you deserve to be on the court, but there's a real rite of passage and there's a real expectation that, sophomores, juniors, seniors are always going to play over a freshman unless you are, Paige Beckers or Caitlin Clark. So that was something I had to really learn. And it was a very competitive environment. Seniors were very good at supporting you, but at the same time, they didn't want a freshman taking their minutes. So it created a really competitive environment, which I loved and thrived on. And so I learned a lot that first season, just worked on, different things and really knew what I wanted to do coming into my sophomore season.
So with your scholarship, was that a full scholarship for 4 years or is it 1 year at a time?
So you're promised for the 4 years, but it kind of rolls over each year.
Yeah. Could they have just gone at any stage? Because we know contracts at the moment, and the reason I'm talking about AFL is that you look at contracts and people can try and break them, and a few players have been held to their contracts recently. But what was that? Could they just be like, look, Mollie, it's not working out. See you later.
And look, I don't know the intricacies of the NCAA, but the expectation is you get a 4-year scholarship, you're there. But so my freshman year, you go in with what they call your freshman class, and they're supposed to be, your best friends that you go through with. There was myself and 2 others, and one of the other girls that they just clearly didn't think that she was ever going to be up to scratch. And so at the end of her first year, they sat her down and said, you can remain here, but you're not going to be training with us. You're not really going to be having anything to do with the program. And so that was a real, we'll honour your scholarship, but there's no point you being here. And so she made the decision to transfer. And that's a very subtle way of saying we're sticking to our obligations, but at the same time, you're not going to play basketball or college basketball if you stay with us. And so she left. And that happened, from my time of the 4 years, there's probably 3 or 4 that happened. And, again, that's one of those fears that you're not going to be up to their expectation, because obviously when you get recruited, they're investing a lot in you. Yeah. And certainly for me, I didn't want to disappoint or let them down because of how much of an opportunity they've given me.
Yeah. And your second year, Mollie, that's, you're now a sophomore, and I guess there was quite a bit that happened in your second year, and I believe we were talking off air before, but you changed conferences, and tell me about your second year, because we were chatting just before off air, and it's like, what a full-on year it was.
And it started with me in the off season. I put the work in, got my body in the best shape I'd been in, came back and we did our time trials and miles, and I broke a few records in the weight room, got myself in really good shape, was ready to go, had pretty much kind of jumped one of the juniors and was starting to get more minutes than her, sitting in a good spot. And then against Boston College, which is our arch rivals, was about 2nd or 3rd game in, went up, came down, done my ankle straight away, tore the front ligament, the side ligament, was black and blue in a boot for, I reckon it was about 6 to 8 weeks at that point. And the doctor kind of said to me, you're better off fracturing it because the ligament damage is not going to be good to get back from. So, it was this exciting, I'm back, I'm ready to go for season, and kick straight back down. And in Boston, it gets damn cold in the winter.
Yep.
So it's belting with snow, and, I'm crutching around in the snow. It was a really steep learning curve again for me, that sometimes you can put the work in, you can do everything right, and it still doesn't work out or doesn't work in your favour. So that was how I started my sophomore year. And then we also find out we were a hot favourite that year, had a really good team, had some great players. The college decided to switch conferences, wanted to go to, at the time they considered a more elite schooling conference. So they swapped conferences, but as a penalty to that, none of the teams could play in the NCAA tournament. So for us, it was kind of like this was our best chance at it, best year. And then we knew going into the season that, our season was just going to be it, that next, the big dance that they talk about, yep. that is a big thing. And we just knew we weren't going to be able to play in it.
And the NCAA tournament, we always hear of the March Madness and Sweet 16. Like, that's your big tournament. That's where you get all your exposure, ESPN, everyone's watching the games. The underdogs, the 16th seed beats the 1 seed, and so you couldn't compete in that.
No, and that's the dream. Like, that's what you talk about. That's what the coaches talk about at the start of the season. That's, we want to get to the tournament. And we were what they call a mid-tier team, so we weren't going to get there based on rankings. We had to win our conference, and that was our goal from the outset. So to know that you could be the best team in your conference and not go, that was hard.
Yeah. So I'm assuming you're recovering from your ankle injury, and I've been in Boston in early April, and it's when the season does start to change. Mm-hmm. And then 2013 the Boston Marathon happens, and the bombings. You were obviously in Boston at the time.
Yeah, so our campus is right. It starts kind of where Fenway Park is, and goes all the way up down to the other end of Boston. And so, Boston Marathon's a big day for the athletes. It's usually a day when the coaches give you the day off from training, or you train first thing in the morning, go to one of the houses that are down where Fenway Park is, and you go down there. celebrate, have a few drinks, eat, and just party really, and watch the marathon runners run past. And so it was at my apartment that we were having the team over. We're all there, everyone's excited. You're out talking to the other athletes. You're all on the track watching people run by. And then it went from being a party and a really cool day to just panic mode. And the phone services shut down pretty much straight after. And so you couldn't get hold of anyone. We had teammates that were walking down to the finish line, so we were worried about them. And it was just an instant kind of instinct. And it was something I hadn't seen before, but the athletes, no matter what team they were on, we all kind of piled into my apartment. I think we had 30 or 40 people just glued to the TV watching as, there was more scares and different locations and people were reporting packages found, and you didn't know who was hurt. You didn't know really what had happened, but you knew something had happened at the finish line. And it was a very scary moment, just not being able to contact anyone, not knowing what's going on, but knowing something pretty serious had happened.
So you could obviously hear something had happened?
Yeah. You could hear something had happened, and you could see the terror of people running away from the finish line. And so you didn't know what, but you knew it was pretty serious. And then it was pretty quickly that it was broadcasted on the news and just on every channel. And our athletic trainers, a lot of them were part of the aid team. And so a lot of them were there at the finish line, helping to try and assist after the first bomb went off. And then, it's panic mode, and then the second one goes off, and it just, the hysteria it created, it was really scary, and it was great to see so many people just, support each other and stick together during what was a really terrifying time, to be honest.
Do you know how far away your apartment was?
We probably within kilometres. We were right behind where the Fenway Park was, so it was a very short walk to get to the finish line. And the Boston Marathon, you probably see it on the TV, but it's just packed in the streets.
Chockers.
Yeah, and especially from where our accommodation was all the way down, it was just packed of people. And so it was just the hysteria from everyone just not knowing what's going on.
Yeah, I watched a couple of 9/11 documentaries the other week, and after the first plane hit, everyone thought it was an accident.
Yeah.
No one had suspected terrorism. Now, obviously, the Boston bombings, just under 12 years later, that's the first thing that comes to mind now, generally. But, I remember watching the footage. Why are all these people running towards it? Why are all these firefighters? Well, no one knew it was going to fall down, but it's just crazy to think that you were right there when it was happening, and, just a crazy experience.
And it was crazy not being able to speak to anyone, so you're being fully cut off, but also just the hysteria. And so you're watching TV, and then, on the bottom of the screen, I'll never forget, it was this scrolling message, and it was where people were reporting possible bomb threats because they were seeing, backpacks, packages, sorry. And so, you just location after location, and some of these were, next door to you, some of these were right behind you, some of these were hospitals. And it was just that hysteria that it created.
A bit of fear.
It was just fear. And it, you're having to make split-second decisions. Do we stay in our apartment? Do we go? Do we keep piling people in? Do we? And you're not prepared for it. You've got no idea how to handle yourself in that situation. But again, it was just to see how everyone stuck together and really kind of talked each other through and supported each other. And we ended up having what we called a runner, where we'd have one person from the apartment that would go to another athlete's apartment to check, have you got your whole team? Who's missing? Where were they last? And trying to coordinate with other teams just to check in and see where we're at and make sure that we could try and identify and locate everyone we could.
And you're probably expected to go to training the next day and, pretend like nothing had happened.
And it was the weirdest thing because the whole city locked down. And so the next day, no one was allowed to leave the apartments, and we were having dining halls at the time. So they had a van that just dead empty of a city and a campus, just one van that was just pretty much throwing out like these aid packages, you call them, but to the apartment building so you could eat. And it was just eerie, quiet city for a whole day. And then, obviously the MIT issue happened, and there was then that hysteria. And then I'll never forget, once they finally caught him, it was like within a split second, a party erupted.
Yep.
And the whole city just absolutely celebrated. And so it was, such a different environment going from this fear and panic to then this celebration of coming together as a city.
Yep, and then you can recommence your normal lives. So we could talk about that for a long time. There's so many more questions, but we will, I guess, move on to, I do want to get back to your basketball as well, because you go into your third year, your junior year, but there was quite a lot of, I guess, changes from a coaching perspective, and also, you being a little bit older now and hopefully taking on some starters minutes.
Yeah, I'd kind of worked my way in again, learning the system, learning my role, teaching myself. And I think, part of what's made me kind of different as a basketballer is because I did teach myself. I was very unorthodox, and my skills were very different.
Raw.
Very raw, yes, that word. And so I had so much to learn. And so I started learning the system, learned, different techniques, skills, and got to my junior season and really felt like I was starting to contribute. I was having more of a significant role with the team. Felt really connected to the coaching group, felt really connected to the playing group. And, I felt like we had a really good thing going. And then, we started probably underperforming. We were in a bit of a skid as far as our performance. And then we get to the tournament, which is, your biggest thing for the year. We finish our game against Army. I'll never forget it. And then the athletic director, who shouldn't have even been at the game, walks into our change room and just says, your whole coaching staff is suspended. You will not be doing any basketball associated with the university or with the coaching staff. There's a formal investigation going on. And it was just like this moment of, wait, what? And we had some player issues. We had one player who essentially quit before the end of the season because she was having issues with coaches. So there'd been a few things kind of bubbling away, but never did I think it would get to this extent. And ESPN got involved, the academic community got involved, and pretty much our whole program got shut down while this investigation happened.
Did you end up playing the tournament, NCAA, or?
No, so we, by losing to Army, we were out. And what we learned was that essentially the school had been waiting to step in, and it was once we kind of got kicked out of our
once the season's
league
over.
tournament. But part of what I loved about college was also the postseason, because that was when you did do individuals, you worked out, you got better, prepared for the next season. And so we just went to this really weird phase of all of a sudden having all this freedom, no commitments, no trainings, no coaching staff that were able to look over your shoulder and
catch up on your schoolwork.
Yeah, that was definitely what I did.
So because you played 27 games, you started 14 of them, so basically you're more than half, 9 points a game, 7 rebounds a game. Love that, nearly a double-double. Did you go back to Australia at all, in between any of these, any of your years?
I think my first year I did, and then I think after that I stayed in college. Just the cost of flying back was expensive.
Couldn't get part of the scholarship, couldn't just get a free flight, direct from Boston to Mildura Airport?
There was, a few difficulties that made it a bit harder than what I would have liked. And it was also a bit of a hard feeling. My life was in America now, and what I was doing in America is very different to what I probably would have been doing if I was in Mildura. So it always felt a bit weird coming home in a sense. Yep. It was great to see, obviously, friends and family, but I enjoyed spending my summers over in Boston. I worked a little bit, but I also got to work out, meet other athletes, and
bit of travel.
Did a bit of travel. Was lucky, got to travel to different places all over the States with teammates, friends, and got to have a bit of the American experience.
I just think, I'm a Boston Red Sox fan. I spent a week in Boston. I just had the best week. I'm just walking through Harvard as well, like I was one of them, and just going to Fenway Park, and just a great. I went to see. Here's this fact. I went to see the Cavaliers play the Celtics at the TD Garden on the morning of the game. It cost me $280 for a ticket because LeBron was playing for the Cavaliers. On the morning of the game, LeBron, Kyrie, and Kevin Love all resting. But I got to watch Matthew Dellavedova start a game for the Cavs along with Tristan Thompson, J.R. Smith, and the Celtics won by about 40. And I remember that morning going on StubHub and the tickets were
$10.
Yeah, and I've paid $240. So
should have messaged me. So my teammate at the time, her dad was an NBA ref. So we used to get really good seats for all the NBA games for free, and she'd just kind of hand out and would rotate who would go to the game. So
this would have been March 2015. You would have been over there as well.
I would have been there.
Should have gone to watch a BU game. But if your senior year,
yep.
Obviously new coach,
New coach, coach that came from Stanford, was an ex-Olympian, huge resume, but I just clashed.
Yep.
A big thing for me was that I worked very hard and I always put everything on the line, but I always wanted to feel like I was respected for what I did. And new coach came in and, she made it very clear it wasn't her team. She didn't recruit this team. This was kind of what she was stuck with. And all of us that have put so much, time and effort into building this program, that was really hard.
Not the best first impression.
Not the best first impression. And so we had a great team, again, underperformed. But, as much as it was difficult with the coaching staff at the time, my teammates were some of the best people I've been able to play with. And we had a great experience playing together, even kind of with that adversity.
Yep. Because you played 30 games. You started all of them but 3. So 10 points a game, 6 rebounds again. Strong game. Were you playing? What position were you actually playing?
I was a very undersized forward in the States. One of my favourite games was playing against UConn just because of the environments and the opportunity to play against them. And I matched up against, Brianna Stewart, Stephanie Dolson, who, 6'5", 6'6", 6'8", and it's just
They're tall.
Yeah. And, blocked. Not many people can block my fadeaway because I, shoot so far back. And, yeah, Brianna Stewart managed to block me every single time because she was just so lanky and so tall. So, I was very undersized, which in the mid-tier league wasn't too bad, but certainly when we came up against some of those powerhouses, I was very small.
So you end up playing 98 games across the 4 years there. Your senior season comes to an end. What's the status with your degree and with your actual your college study? How's that all travelling?
Yeah, so I knew I wanted to do law. I kind of always had that postgrad in the back of my mind that when I got back to Australia, I'd do it. So I focused on criminal justice. When I was in the States, was kind of knowing that the next thing I wanted to do was law, and just a good exposure and lots of different learnings in that process. So I did my last 2 years really focused on the criminal justice side and learnt so much. Went and visited prisons, went and met with sociologists, talk about criminal behaviours, criminal theory, and really learnt and really enjoyed that. But whether I stayed in America or came back to Australia, I was still going to have to do another 3 or 4 years of study. And what it was going to cost me to do my law degree in the US was astronomical. And I was keen to kind of start my studies, come back to Australia and move on to the next stage.
So it was a bit of a no-brainer then that, your 4 years have finished, the scholarships run out and you come back to Australia. Was it straight from Boston back to Mildura? And then, obviously we're in Adelaide right now. How did that all eventuate?
It was always, and one of my worst qualities in a way is I'm always worried about, what's next thing I can do. And so I was finishing my college season, hadn't even finished yet, and some of the SA teams, Body Nodge, who I knew through junior basketball.
The greatest advertiser, basketball journalist ever.
Across everything.
Best moustache ever. I used to know exactly where he sat at the 36ers games.
Knows everything, everyone, every bit of gossip. He had reached out at the time he was involved with South Adelaide and had spoke to me about coming back. And so pretty much as soon as my tournament had ended in our kind of conference, flew straight to Adelaide with, my 2 suitcases of my life for the past 4 years.
Oh, your Boston University merch that you've hung on to?
It was hard to have to only bring back a couple of suitcases because I did not want to let go of any of those shoes or the clothes. But yeah, came back to Adelaide and pretty much straight away got into the local, I think it was ABL back then.
Yep.
The local kind of state league, started playing straight in that. So
for South Adelaide?
Yeah, so South
Marion
Adelaide,
Stadium?
Marion
the
Stadium.
Loudest stadium. Oh my God.
Yeah, look, the old shed
Yes.
stadium where you've got your nice benches that are pretty much the sideline. And look, it started at the shed and that was a bit of a change from what I'd experienced in Boston. But again, just another opportunity to play basketball. Yeah. So I was excited about it.
Well, now they've moved to the beautiful facility at Mitchell Park.
They have.
Yeah, where I graced the... I've spoken about this in the last 2 podcasts, Mollie, but yeah, I played social basketball there a couple of weeks ago and did a calf on court 1. So don't do fast breaks if you're over 37.
I don't think I've ever been referred to as doing a fast break. I think I was referred to as doing the slowest fast break that they've seen. So yeah. I think I'm covered. I'm okay.
It was a fast break for me. So so you moved to Adelaide and obviously you tied into South Adelaide basketball. How did uni work? How did you did you have to then contact the unis and go, look, I've been in Boston for 4 years, I want to do this?
Yeah, it was a bit different having to get all my transcripts and having to figure out what could translate back over to the Australian system and just figuring out
What can you get credit for and all that?
all the fun of that. And then also how do I and what pathway am I doing through law? Knew I wanted to be a lawyer, but okay, well, where do I start with this? What does my what does my undergrad give me as far as credit? And so kind of worked with the university, had to get all the fancy paperwork from America, and it was a bit more of a hassle than I liked. But in the end, Flinders University did my postgrad honours through there, and they were really good to me. I overloaded my last year whilst I was working and playing so that I could kind of speed through my degree. And so, yeah, my 3.5 years, I managed to finish my law degree, GDLP in honours.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it was great. I knew I wanted to do law, so I was very driven. And again, just that typical chip on the shoulder. I wanted to prove a point that I could be good at it. So, yeah, put in the time and effort.
Yeah, a good part of the world, Flinders Union and Marion, and you were living around there as well?
Living around there, loved the campus, the community, and yeah, just a great university for me.
I do, like, obviously you've come back here and a silly question, but when you're at BU, you didn't have to work.
No, so when you're over there, because you literally get everything covered, and it was a bit different back when I was there, that they didn't have the NIL, which is the new college system where players can essentially get sponsorship deals and get money, and that's a big thing now. But back when I was there,
It was a big no-no. Big no-no.
And, I remember it was my first few weeks at BU when I had the athletic director. Looking back, I got into a fair bit of trouble because I remember the AD sitting me down in an office, and I was terrified because they'd found an article from the Sunraysia Daily, our local paper, where I had made a reference to my local team sponsor for the Heat giving me some money to help me pay for something. And they'd found this article, and that was a huge no-no. So I had to get a letter from them saying that they didn't give me money to go to BU, when it turned out into this big thing. And I just...
A shit show over $200 or something.
Sunraysia Daily, like, it is... But anyway, that's how serious they took it over there. And so you don't have to work at all because they cover everything. But at the same time, I wanted a bit of, fun money, a bit of travel money. So I worked as part of the athletic program there, where you'd pretty much just be, ball girl for other sports, or you would do tickets for teams, or you'd lock up the gyms. And so just did a few hours just to have a bit of pocket money on, what was a good wage over there of probably, $6.50 an hour.
Plus tips. So that leads into my question. You're starting at Flinders and playing basketball. That couldn't have paid the bill. So how did you get into work?
Yeah, so working, I was initially doing coaching, doing a bit of a role with South Adelaide. And it was just through a holiday clinic I was coaching at, where Dave Ingham at the time, who was with the state program, he sat me down and just kind of said, look, would you be interested in doing a more formal coaching role with SA Country Basketball? And absolutely, loved coaching, loved being involved with basketball. So it was kind of a win-win for me. So working full-time with SA Country Basketball, travelling, all over the state, working with junior kids in country areas and working with the state programs. And so it was a busy time. I'd be driving to Millicent, Narracourt, Mount Gambier, listening to my podcast, uni lectures, and trying to listen but not fall asleep, but also be switched on to take it all in, and then overloading with subjects, trying to still do a little bit with basketball playing wise as well. It was a very full on time, but again, just loved being a part of basketball.
Luckily, when you were driving over, you had some great podcasts to listen to. If only half it was. I'm actually driving to Melbourne on Saturday morning to watch Oasis. So I've already banked about. I'll listen to this one. I always like to, critique our work. They do make a road trip. Like, there's only so much music you can listen to, but you get a couple of podcasts under the bank. Oh, there's 2 hours. And
yeah, look, it was. I much prefer now listening to podcasts that I like listening to. I must say, at the time, when it's late at night and you're driving to, Millicent, listening to admin law and your lecturer talking about
that's when you need to put some heavy metal on. Windows down.
There was some difficult times in staying alert, I tell you.
Yeah. So you're back, obviously playing at South Adelaide, and you've been played college ball. Was there any connections with Adelaide's WNBL team, the Lightning? Did they at least put an offer out there to you?
Yeah, I trained with him my first year back. Tracy York was the coach then, and was had a contract, but was really only ever a training player. Sit on the bench at home games, was suit up, but just was that right down the end of the list, in other words, and got a bit of a feel for it, but struggled, to be honest, managing it with work, study, and everything else. But really enjoyed, again, just playing with that next caliber of players. And then moved out to Southern and played under Tracy York out there with the kind of intention that I'd play.
Down at Morphettvale?
Yep, so down at Morphettvale, played for the Tigers, loved it there, and with the plan I'd play for Tracy again with the Lightning and maybe have a bit more opportunity. And then out of the blue, Tracy was no longer coach. Chris Lucas came involved, and I started, training and started being involved. And then, things just, the environment changed and some things happened, and just decided to step away from it.
Yep. And we could talk about all the your NBL teams. You've played NBL 1 team, sorry, you've played for. South Adelaide, Southern, Eastern Mavs.
Yeah, keep going.
Yep, where we have a mutual friend, Jackie Darlett's a great human being. North Adelaide currently.
Yes, so North Adelaide last season. So yeah, South, Eastern, Mavs, North.
You just give them back to South Australian basketball.
I just love the different uniforms. Really, just wanted to try and get a full collection. I've got a few to go.
Yeah, but this is where I guess for me, where it gets really, really interesting, because obviously I met you, Mollie. I reckon it would have been. It was a Saturday morning, early June 2020. So what a crazy time it was to be alive. But before we talk about how we first met, 2018, you sort of, you make that little, not going to say you transfer from basketball to footy, but you start kicking the footy around. How'd that happen?
Yeah, again, just being a tomboy, just loving any sport, just having fun kicking the footy. And I had a friend at the time who was kind of similar to me, and she said, "Oh, look, there's this new team out at South Adelaide. They're playing in this women's league. Just come out for a run and a kick. There's nothing much to it." And then went out there, and all of a sudden, coaches are yelling drills and things I've got to do, and I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. Like I could kick, I could mark, I could run, but drills, technique, all of that, had no clue. And so I felt a bit like a fish out of water. But yeah, from there, the head coach, Chrissy Steen, contacted me and just kind of said, "Do you want to play in our sample W team?"
For South Adelaide?
For South Adelaide. And at the time, we're still doing basketball. So it was, can I juggle both and juggle my other commitments? And, as you do, kind of thought, why not? And so, yeah, got into playing football.
Yep. And played in your first year at South Adelaide, the first year of the SANFLW, win a premiership.
Yeah, it was great. We had a really, really good team, had some great players that went on to play AFLW. And it was a short season, which kind of worked for me with basketball and helped me get into really good shape, and just enjoyed the different challenge. I like running and being in a field where you can just run and never stop. It was really enjoyable. Hated tackling drills. Hated that side of it, but just enjoyed being a part of a different sport, different culture, and winning the premiership was definitely a highlight of the year.
Do you remember who you beat on that day? Because you've obviously won a few premierships, and we'll get to that a little bit later. Part of it, I remember going to Glenelg Oval and watching my good friend Lauren Saunders play for North. I swear they played against you lot. Maybe I watched it back then.
It might have been. I honestly,
it was a Sunday afternoon. It was cold and miserable and windy, but that's all good. We've got another SANFLW premiership to talk about later. But what was the fitness like going from basketball to footy? Was there anything you could transfer other than obviously catching the ball?
Oh, I definitely got in the best shape I'd been being involved in footy, just from the running side of it. And I always really enjoyed that side. So I definitely got in really good shape for basketball. But coordination-wise, I think basketball probably helped with footy, just ball skills, that side of thing. But also, I definitely, again, being probably raw in football, if someone had the ball, I'd try and steal it from them. I wouldn't tackle them or
just sort of slap out their hands.
Yeah, there were some basketball tendencies I had that definitely translated into footy.
Would have been good at smothering, just a couple of rejections,
a couple of blocks, and marking and things like that was a little bit different with footy compared to basketball. But yeah, the tackling, like I reckon every time they'd provide the photos at the end of the round. I was always in there running away from someone. Like, never would you get a photo of me being tackled because I just, no.
That's like me, Molly. Like, why? Our job's to mark the ball. You know, they get the ball in the air, we mark it.
Yeah.
Let other people tackle. That was been my philosophy.
I take great pride that my first year of footy, they started a role just for me of wicketkeeper, where I literally just hung out the back of the pack, and when the ball came out, that was my time to shine because
play a role.
I wasn't getting in there in that melee.
Play a role. But yeah, 2020, you cross over to the North Adelaide Football Club, the Mighty Roosters, who
I've changed a lot of teams, haven't I?
Yeah, I'll put it up on the socials later. We'll just have a full list of where you've played. But you follow your South Premiership coach, Chrissy Steen, across to North, along with Anne Hatchard, Christy Harvey as well. So Lep.
Absolute legend, Lep, yep.
One of the best defenders I've ever seen, male or female. I'm going to put that out there. Yep. So and she would beat the crap out of me and I wouldn't get a kick on her. So
absolute legend, human.
You play the 2020, we're going back nearly 6 years now, but the SANFLW, they got about 3 or 4 games. I remember you beat South at Noarlunga Oval or whatever it's called, Flinders University, Higginbotham. It's had that many names. And basically the next week, COVID hits, shuts everything down. And it wasn't until about, I reckon, June. We were talking before, my friend Lauren Saunders, she gave me the call. Was like, Widow, we're looking for a few assistant coaches because obviously you'd had during COVID, people had gone back to Victoria or people had left. And I'm like, yeah, but bloody oath, I'll give this a go. And I honestly reckon, Molly, you were, aside from maybe Lauren and maybe Tiny, the captain, you were the first person I just said, g'day, how you going? And, I didn't know anyone, but somehow we just started chatting about basketball.
Yeah, I'm going to throw you under. I reckon pretty early on you told me about your love for the Pellies, and that was straight away a bit of a banter point for me. But again, I love talking basketball. You love talking basketball, so it was a bit of a...
We're probably talking too much basketball, and we're talking about how useless Zion and the Pelicans are, and it's good to see nothing's actually changed from that very first chat. But
consistent.
Obviously, I remember watching you that left foot. You just mark it and roll around the left and kick goals, and we were fortunate enough to we play against South in the grand final in 2020, and I guess the rest is history.
It is, and from what I remember, it's definitely history because I reckon we celebrated pretty hard that night. But yeah, just again, being able to celebrate and win with such a special group, coaching staff and playing group. I love playing, I love competing, but there's nothing better after the kind of final siren goes and that's celebrating with people who you've been through a lot with, really pushed each other, had the ups and downs with selections, injuries, trainings, and COVID was a huge adjustment for everybody. And so celebrating and going through all that and being able to enjoy coming out on top on it at the end of it was definitely special.
Reward for effort. Because I'd only rolled in sort of, I think it was early June, might have even been early July, but all you girls you've been pre-season pretty much, probably I'll say October, maybe November. You had 4 months of pre-season, you played 4 games, and then you go on a 4-month break. And, I didn't understand, the siren went and I was obviously happy for you girls, but, at the time I was like, geez, these girls are carrying on. But then it had been nearly a year of hard work.
Yeah, and look, it felt long. And I think everyone being isolated during COVID and the uncertainty of COVID, it really, it impacted everybody.
Yep.
It changed everyone's lives. And so I think it had been a real slog. And look, I am an indoor sports girl.
Yep.
I'm not playing footy if it was a winter sport. And I really liked Stanford that it was summer and I could be in the sun, and it was not summer for the end of that season.
I also love it though, Molly, when there's a little bit of cloud cover, you would don the long sleeve. All right, that was noted, and that
absolutely.
She wears a long sleeve and she likes basketball, and she can kick long bombs from 50. Tick, tick, tick.
There was definitely a moment where I was like, can I get permission to wear leggings under my football shorts? Because this weather, I'm not on board.
It'll happen one day. One day it will happen.
And you know what? I will be fully embracing whoever starts that trend, because the elements and you're being tackled and it's raining and you're still expected to play. And
It also means the majority of AFLW and SAWW women won't have tan because, gee, you watch them going around at the moment. Some of them are orange.
Yeah, well, look, I can't comment on tan because I was the palest person and still to this day don't that title on the basketball court. So
you and I, Pasty, represent. It's crazy though, Mollie, that that was your last game of footy. So you've won obviously your second flag in 3 years, and then did you just go, oh, look, maybe I'll just stick to basketball?
I don't know, really. It just kind of, again, just any opportunity that came, I kind of wanted to give it a crack. And Chrissy kind of spoke to me a little bit about whether I wanted to do anything more with footy or try and pursue any more opportunities. And
is that sort of like AFLW or?
Yeah, just AFLW stuff. And that was when it was kind of getting a bit of momentum and kind of thought about it. But at the same time, just, basketball for me has always been that love. And, I love training, love playing, love being a part of it. And I loved the team aspect of footy and the competitiveness of footy. But for me, if I had to pick between two, it was always going to be basketball. And when work was kind of building and starting to take off and, I couldn't commit as much time to sport and what I wanted to do, it was, to be honest, a pretty easy decision to just keep going with basketball.
And since then, you've moved 18 times to different basketball teams, but you're still playing at the moment, which is awesome. You've also you've had quite a bit going on. So work right now. We're meeting in the lovely boardroom in your office in the city. So what are you doing for work now, Mollie?
Yep, so I'm a member of the independent bar as a barrister. So I work for myself within chambers with 7 or 8 other guys. And really run my own schedule, work predominantly in criminal law, do a bit of medical board stuff, a bit of civil, a little bit of family, but mainly criminal trials in the district and Supreme Court. And that keeps me quite busy.
Anything is it sporting related at all, or
not in the slightest?
No.
So people making bad decisions, and I work on both sides of the bar table, which is quite unusual. So I prosecute, I defend. And then, do a fair bit of medical practitioner on behalf of the board. So love being in court, love, my career, and that's a real focus for me at the moment and enjoy the challenges that it brings.
And we were just chatting before about how you might have a couple of days in here, a couple of days in court. Just seems very interesting. This is coming from a teacher who, every day it is the same. And we know what we're going to get. All schools are the same. You go, you teach your lessons, you stop. But, I'm very intrigued and, we could talk, I guess, forever about that. Moving forward, though, obviously work, basketball, anything else on the horizon?
Definitely with sport. Last year was going to be my last year, and I kind of made that decision, and then just didn't have the year I wanted to have. Had some injuries and just wasn't playing the basketball I wanted to. So I think for me, I've really decided that I'll, go around again and try and finish on a better note. Where that is still to be determined, and just got to make that decision based on other life factors. So, that'll keep going. Basketball works, absolutely hectic, and I keep promising my partner that next month will be better. But I think with the nature of just my calendar at the moment, I've got some big trials coming up, big matters coming up, which will be no doubt stressful and long hours. So just.
And you're giving up 2 hours of your Wednesday night to go on a podcast.
Wouldn't do it for anyone.
Thanks, Mollie. I appreciate that. But in all honesty, I have every episode I'm doing, I enjoy them more than the previous one. But I've said this to a couple of guests, but I mean it. You're on that initial list of, all right, who's someone I know that has a really, really cool story that not many people have done? And that's what the point of Half Wit is, not many people, you and Colleen, who were on episode 3, have played professional sport, college sport, and living on campus. Just, I used to always watch those movies, and I was like, oh, I would love to do that. You've done it, and you've lived a life.
Yeah, look, I think my pathway is just a bit different, and I think I've learned to really embrace that. And in sport, in my career at the moment, I'm not your typical barrister. I'm not your typical basketballer, and I wasn't your typical kid, but I think for me, I've embraced that. I'm, paving my own path. I've, fought through some tough times that, I really challenged myself and had moments that I probably could have walked away. And I pride myself on my hard work and on, just my journey being my journey. So, I'm always open to talk about being a bit different and having a bit of a different pathway, because I think, I love sport. I love kids being involved in sport. And, I really hope people can, continue to play the game and enjoy the successes that you can get from the game, which I have.
You never gave up when you could have quite a few times. So, Mollie, I've loved chatting with you. When does the actual your next season start?
March, I think, will be probably tip-off. End of March, they'll release the NBL1 schedule. So pre-season kind of gets cracking about now-ish. Reserves have started, but I play the over 30 card of needing to have some time off. One of the benefits of being a senior, I can kind of have a little bit of time now to just get my body right, get life.
Just play the last pre-season game, get a couple of buckets, ready for round one.
I'm always keen to roll in at pre-season and show up some of the juniors, just fitness-wise. I like to... I've got a very competitive nature no matter what I'm doing. So I'll definitely roll around to a couple of the pre-season sessions. But, yeah, it's just about, life balance, having a little bit of time away from the sport to miss it, to then go back to it.
If you figure out this work-life balance, please let me know, all right? So, Mollie, I've loved chatting with you. Hopefully next time I bump into you, or, in a couple of months' time, the Pelicans are, they're in the playoffs.
That's not going to happen.
We know it's not going to happen. But, Mollie, love chatting with you. And, really appreciate you coming on Halfwit.
No worries. Thanks for having me, Matt.
A massive thanks to you again, Mollie, for being on today's episode of Halfwit. I just loved hearing you explain what it was like living on campus, experiencing that college life. I remember growing up watching a heap of movies, The Social Network, Van Wilder, American Pie, Orange County, very underrated movie with Colin Hanks, the son of Tom Hanks. Jack Black's also in that movie. John Lithgow too. I definitely recommend it. But also even like the Mighty Ducks D3 when they all lived at Seton Hall. And I know they're just movies, but it was always something that I wish I could have done. And I just loved hearing Mollie tell us her experiences and what it was like. Now, as I mentioned at the start of today's podcast, a good friend of mine, Ben Wilson, has started his own company, Fox Rose Woodwork, and together we've actually teamed up for a bit of a special giveaway. So Ben's company, Fox Rose Woodwork, is based right here in the Adelaide Hills, and basically Ben has gone about trying to transform the way you cut your sourdough bread. We've all seen those ads where there's a bloody chainsaw trying to cut through it. But with Ben's beautifully crafted bread bow knife, they are just as powerful and far more elegant. These knives are effortless to achieve those perfect even slices ready for the toaster every time. Now, if you would like to win one of these limited edition bread bow knives, which is made from locally and ethically sourced hardwood, this is what you got to do. You got to follow me, the Matt Whitford Podcast. You got to follow Fox Rose Woodwork on Instagram. Then what you've got to do, there'll be a post there. I believe Ben's going to set it up. I'm going to be I believe the word is a co-creator. And basically up until the 8th of November, once that happens, all the people that have liked both and shared the post and will go in the draw to win one of these incredible sourdough knives. I'm also probably going to be liking the post as well so that I can go on a chance to win one as well. But if I don't, I'll be buying one regardless. But no, really exciting that Fox Rose Woodwork has come on board as a sponsor. And I can attest to Benny's handiwork. It's incredible. I was with him one day at his house in Flagstaff Hill, helping him chop down a tree and move all that wood. And I believe, Ben, you did say one day you would make me a coffee table. So I am going to hold you to that. That is enough from me. I've got a big couple of days coming up. On Saturday morning, I am getting in my ASX, my beautiful white Mitsubishi, and I'm going to drive to Melbourne. Saturday night, I'll be seeing Oasis at Marvel Stadium. Tickets only cost me $425. They were $400, and then Ticketek just chucked in a $25 booking fee. But it's going to be a great night. I'll drive back Sunday and somehow front up to work on Monday. But no, really excited with how today's episode panned out, and I hope you absolutely loved it. I'm Matt Whitford. Thanks for listening.